As I entered the hotel suite, the atmosphere was thick, oppressive, and crackling with a sharpness that only treachery could evoke. My gaze landed on Clara Valdez, my wife. Her arms entwined around another man's neck, their laughter cutting through the room with sharp intensity. Initially, I experienced neither anger nor heartbreak. What I experienced was a chilling tranquility, a piercing lucidity that sliced through the fog of skepticism. Unbeknownst to them, I was right there, and that marked the beginning of their errors. Though they believed they were outsmarting me, I had been aware from the very beginning. Their secrets lay bare, and I found myself entangled in a far grander, riskier game, one in which victory was not theirs to claim. From an external perspective, our life appeared flawless. Clara Valdez was a celebrated architect whose creations adorned the covers of the most esteemed publications. She was the center of attention, receiving endless praise and adoration at every gala and event. We were referred to as a dynamic duo, her imaginative flair combined with my tactical acumen. I was Adrian Vega, a leading financial strategist, the individual whose impact extended from corporate boardrooms to the most elite clubs in Madrid. United, we appeared invincible, an idyllic pair immersed in a storybook romance. Yet, even fairy tales cast their shadows, and ours had been quietly brewing in the darkness for far too long. Initially, the indications were faint. An overlooked dinner here, an ambiguous excuse there. She began arriving home late, her justifications smooth and persuasive. Client meetings extended beyond the scheduled time. She let out a weary sigh, removing her heels as if the burden of her achievements was wearing her down. The subtle aroma of an unknown fragrance clung to her garments, yet I reassured myself it was inconsequential. Her realm was dazzling, filled with individuals perpetually competing for her focus. Undoubtedly, that clarified all matters. However, those justifications evolved into recurring behaviors, and those behaviors solidified into routines. Late nights evolved into weekends spent apart, and the once cherished moments we shared faded away, leaving behind an expanding emptiness. A pivotal moment occurred at a charity auction. Clara Valdez stood beside me, breathtaking in an emerald gown that drew the attention of everyone in the room. Her smile was present, yet it failed to illuminate her eyes. She occupied the space, yet remained aloof, her phone vibrating softly on the table. Her eyes darted to the screen, a brief shadow of discomfort passing over her features before she swiftly averted her gaze. A name flickered momentarily. Raphael. The earth trembled beneath my feet, the initial fractures breaking through the veneer of our existence. I chose not to confront her at that moment, yet that name sowed a seed of doubt that lingered, demanding attention. That night, while she slumbered peacefully next to me, her breath calm and rhythmic, I found myself wide awake, my thoughts swirling. The name Raphael lingered in my mind, a persistent ache that grew unbearable. I quietly slipped out of bed, taking care not to disturb her, and made my way to the living room where her phone rested, charging peacefully. My hands quivered as I grasped it, the screen illuminating gently in the shadows. The messages were secured with a passcode naturally, but her email remained accessible. I sifted through a torrent of professional emails until it caught my eye. A confidential message from Raphael. The phrases carved a lasting impression in my thoughts. Last night was truly remarkable. Your warmth lingers in my memory. At the same time next week, a fire of anger coursed through me, yet I chose not to act on it. Not at this moment. I settled back into bed, my determination strengthening as I rested next to her. Unbeknownst to her, I was already aware, and that would mark her initial error. The following morning, she pressed her lips to mine in a farewell, her smile warm and effortless, as if everything remained the same. As she stepped through the threshold, I reached a conclusion. I would dissect her deceptions layer by layer. In the days that followed, I found myself a man driven by an insatiable quest for understanding. I meticulously examined her credit card statements, revealing charges for meals at establishments I had never encountered before. Exquisite dining experiences for couples in softly illuminated, cozy atmospheres. Her calendar displayed meetings that aligned perfectly with her late nights, consistently justified as work-related commitments. Then there was a Valencia, a lavish hotel where she had registered twice under her name, yet with Rafael Morales noted as a guest. With each revelation, the image of treachery grew more distinct, every detail honing my determination. Every detail I uncovered shattered the illusion of our perfect life. I was more than a husband who faced betrayal. I was a person driven by purpose. The frustration bubbled quietly within, restrained and deliberate, as I strategized my forthcoming action. Facing her head-on would lack the intrigue, the element of surprise. No. I wanted her to grasp the gravity of her decisions, to realize that betrayal carries its own price. With each step she took, I trailed behind silently, observing her as she moved forward, as if everything remained the same. She believed she had outsmarted me, convinced she could navigate this dual existence without facing any repercussions. Yet, I had already started to arrange the elements at play. It wasn't about retribution. The focus was on fairness, not only for the deceit she had woven, but for the years of trust she had so thoughtlessly shattered. Isabel and Raphael were blissfully unaware of the impending events. They had no inkling that the man they had dismissed would ultimately reveal their betrayal for what it truly was, a delicate, transient illusion, destined to collapse beneath the burden of reality. Betrayal quietly slips in, devoid of any grand gestures. It infiltrates the fissures of a bond, quiet and unseen, until the entire structure crumbles. And when it arrives, those who instigated it seldom recognize the tempest they've set in motion. Yet this time, the tempest would bear a name, and it would be etched in their memories. The pain lay in the minutiae, the boldness of her deeds, the deceit she meticulously stitched into the tapestry of our existence, believing I would remain oblivious to the unraveling seams. However, I observed every detail I have always possessed. It began with a sense of simplicity, or at least that's what I convinced myself. Long hours spent at the office, endless business trips that seemed to increase, and her unwavering claim that all her efforts were for our benefit, for the sake of our future. Still, there was an element in her tone, the subtle quiver in her voice as she spoke, that put me on high alert. A subtle voice within me hinted that something was amiss, and I decided to heed its call. I started to observe, taking care not to draw her attention. Each evening, she insisted she was putting in extra hours at the office. I trailed behind, keeping a cautious distance. Before long, I became aware of the recurring theme. She consistently found herself at the same destination, the Valencia, an elegant, high-end hotel recognized for its privacy. She was cautious, frequently looking back, yet still not cautious enough. On a particular night when she came in, I laid eyes on him for the very first time. Raphael. He welcomed her outside the hotel, his arms wrapped around her waist in a manner that felt overly familiar, overly intimate. She leaned into him, her smile radiant and open. A smile I hadn't encountered aimed at me in quite some time. The confirmation struck me with unexpected force, yet I felt no anger. Not at this moment. It would have been simple to react with anger, to let impulse take the lead. Instead, I felt a chilling sense of calculation. To unravel this betrayal, I needed to approach it with precision and care. For the following week, I focused on collecting evidence, including hotel bookings, emails, and receipts. Every piece of evidence served as a further blow to her dishonesty. I observed their actions closely, recorded their habits, and meticulously strategized my forthcoming moves. The chance arose earlier than anticipated. A week later, I welcomed Clara Valdez to my home for dinner, preparing her favorite dish. Delicious paella, infused with saffron and adorned with fresh seafood, complemented by a fine vintage Rioja. She showed up late, just like always. Her cheeks glowed with a rosy hue, and her hair had a charming disarray. A gaze that might have once captivated me, yet now merely validated my doubts. "It had been a long day," I inquired, my voice steady as I filled her glass with wine. She nodded, her rehearsed smile firmly in place. "Fatiguing, yet rewarding. We secured the contract," she stated. "Did you?" I responded, placing my glass aside and locking eyes with her. "Or did Raphael achieve something different tonight?" Her smile wavered, and in an instant, a glimmer of panic crossed her features. "What do you mean by that?" she inquired, her voice trembling. I reclined, savoring the moment, allowing the quiet to linger before revealing the carefully assembled stack of evidence I had gathered. I set it down on the table between us, observing her expression as she took in what it was. Documents of hotel reservations, credit card transactions, and images of their correspondence. "Could you clarify this for me?" I inquired, my tone soft yet incisive. Her hands shook slightly as she extended them toward the papers. "Gabriel, that isn't the case." She started to speak, but I interrupted her. "Do not belittle me by claiming it's not as it appears." I broke, my composed exterior shattering. "It appears precisely as it truly is. You've been creeping around with Raphael, deceiving me, and shattering everything we've created together." Her eyes brimmed with tears, yet I remained untouched. Neither sorrow nor compassion. A chilling sense of fulfillment washed over me as I observed her deceptions come undone. "Gabriel," I erred, she murmured. "I had no intention of—" "Halt," I commanded with a firm tone. "Now is not the moment for regrets. The moment for repercussions has arrived. My strategy was already underway." The following day, I reserved the same suite at the Valencia where they consistently gathered. The irony of choosing the very place of their treachery as the backdrop for their demise was strikingly beautiful. I chose not to share that with Clara Valdez. I opted to reach out to Raphael directly, employing a burner phone and an alias. Disguised as a keen investor, I proposed a meeting at the Valencia, within the suite they often visited. On the day of the meeting, I arrived ahead of time and prepared the atmosphere. I gathered all the essentials: photos, emails, receipts, and even a recording of Clara Valdez's emotional confession from our confrontation. Upon Raphael's arrival, he exuded his typical arrogance, serving himself a drink as though the suite were his own domain. Shortly after, Clara Valdez stepped in, her expression wan and filled with worry. Upon catching sight of me in the corner, her face became a mask of fear. "Gabriel," she faltered. "What are you—" "Please take a seat," I interjected, my tone steady yet authoritative. Raphael, clearly unsettled, shifted his gaze between us. "What is this?" he asked, his tone cutting. "This," I declared. "Setting the stack of evidence on the coffee table marks the conclusion of your playful charade." I directed my gaze at Raphael, my tone icy. "That's a lovely ring," I remarked, gesturing toward the gold band adorning his finger. "It seems you possess a level of cunning that rivals my spouse." His jaw clenched. "You don't frighten me," he retorted. "You ought to feel fear," I responded, my tone hushed. "What lies ahead will shatter you." A USB drive was set down on the table. This includes all the essentials: emails, receipts, and photos. It could destroy you, Raphael, in every aspect of your life. I'm curious about Sophia's reaction when she lays eyes on it. His confidence wavered at the mention of his wife. "And you, Clara Valdez," I went on, directing my gaze towards her. "Once this becomes known, your career and reputation will be finished. You will serve as a warning for others." The room was still, the gravity of my words lingering in the air. It dawned on them that the game had come to an end. For me, though, it was merely the start. The USB drive was sent to Sophia, who is Raphael's wife, without revealing my identity. She envisioned the moment she would unveil the package in their pristine living room, the flawless illusion of their existence crumbling. However, I continued on from that point. Armed with the evidence I had gathered, I disclosed incriminating documents regarding Raphael's business practices to his major rivals. Evidence of questionable transactions, illicit payments, and tax avoidance. In a matter of days, murmurs escalated into bold headlines, compelling his partners to demand his resignation. I informed Clara Valdez's most significant client regarding her scandal. The stark reality was sufficient to cut their connections. One evening she called me, her voice quivering with emotion. "Gabriel, everything is unraveling. My endeavors, my standing, I'm at a loss for what steps to take." I remained quiet, devoid of any compassion. She had made her decisions, and now she was facing the outcomes. Deception is an art form, and I had mastered it flawlessly. Her voice was tinged with desperation, yet it failed to evoke any response from me. The gravity of her entreaties lingered, yet my determination stood firm. "Every choice we make carries weight, Clara Valdez," I remarked. My tone was as frigid as the wind that howled outside. "And yours are finally catching up with you." A month later, I stood on the balcony of my penthouse, a glass of scotch in hand. Before me, the city unfolded without limit. The shimmering light stood in sharp contrast to the shadows that had overshadowed my life for an eternity. The soft strains of classical music drifted from the living room behind me, enveloping the space in a haunting tranquility. Clara Valdez had vanished. Her possessions, which had once filled my space, were now neatly packed away in boxes she would never come back to retrieve. Raphael, likewise, had disappeared from the public eye. The individual who once radiated charisma and achievement now existed as a mere shadow of his past glory. His career lay in shambles. His reputation lay in ruins, irreparable. Sophia, his wife, had initiated the divorce proceedings, taking their children with her to Lisbon to embark on a fresh chapter, removed from the turmoil he had set in motion in their existence. Yet, while their downfalls were indeed satisfying, they did not provide the source of my greatest satisfaction. A chilling sense of victory washed over me as I regained control. They had plotted to take away all that I held dear, my self-respect, my faith, my core identity. In their defeat, I found a way to regain more than what they sought to seize. I had reconstructed my existence, more resilient and keen than ever. The crisp night air bit at my skin as I rested against the railing, gazing down at the lively streets beneath me. Betrayal is a merciless instructor, I reflected. It strips away the soothing fantasies we hold dear, revealing only harsh realities in its aftermath. And the reality was this: I had ceased to be the person they believed they could control. I'd been forged in flames, and now I stood resilient. As I savored the final sip of my scotch, I felt the warmth envelop me, and I gently spoke into the quiet of the night. At times, the tempest merely reshapes you. It empowers you. As time flowed on, existence settled into a fresh cadence. The turmoil that treachery had unleashed in my life slowly transformed into a serene assurance I hadn't experienced in ages. I had not come to embrace trust in others. It was confidence in my abilities, a conviction that I could face life's challenges without losing my essence once more. On a tranquil afternoon, as I strolled to a quaint gallery close to the Prado Museum, a painting caught my attention, exuding an aura of both melancholy and exquisite beauty. As I stood there, enthralled by the artist's vision, a voice interrupted my reverie. "Isn't it lovely?" A woman stood beside me as I turned to look. Her presence captivated as much as the artwork did. Her features possessed a refined simplicity that was both graceful and subtle. Her demeanor was serene and collected. Her smile radiated warmth, and her eyes beckoned with an inviting glow. More than words could express, I responded, my eyes drawn to her instead of the artwork. Elena was a photographer in Madrid, there to present her own creations. We wandered through the gallery for hours, exchanging reflections on art, life, and all that lies in between. She refrained from delving into my history, and for the first time in ages, I felt no urge to protect it. Her warmth and generosity were a soothing comfort I hadn't recognized I was missing. As the sun sank beneath the horizon, casting the city in shades of gold and crimson, a deep understanding washed over me. The betrayal I experienced, as painful as it was, had served as a purifying flame. It had consumed everything that was untrue, providing me with a base from which I could reconstruct. What I had built from those ashes was more than merely a life. It was an existence grounded in authenticity and resilience. To those navigating the tumultuous waters of betrayal, remember, it does not determine your worth. Your true essence is revealed in the way you emerge from the remnants of adversity. Though the pain may appear overwhelming, within it resides the strength to reconstruct. What you bring into existence can be more powerful, more refined, and more enduring than you ever imagined. I appreciate the opportunity to share this story. May it remind us that even in our most challenging times, a way to the light exists.